Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, including the stuff from Lost Origin, make sure you check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code OmniPoke. For today's video, we're going to be going over the two late nights that just happened yesterday, looking at the top 8 results and the metagame, because I have the Lille Regional Championships coming up this weekend, and I'm still struggling for a deck choice myself. So we're going to be looking at these, and then also looking at the Trainer Hill data, and see how things have adapted since, of course, the Salt Lake Regionals, where we saw the Regi gang. Now, we can't really replicate that on PTGO, unfortunately, so it's a little bit awkward right now. That it does skew the data that we're looking at a little bit. But you definitely have to consider Reggie's as a play potentially this weekend. You would also think that Arc Gudra and Arc Flying Peak Bibarrel stuff, or just Arc Bibarrel in general, could be making a small resurgence, because we've seen those had really big breakout performances in Salt Lake City and sort of put them back on the map. But the first late night that we're looking at doesn't really reflect that too much, as we can see there's 4 Giratinas in the top 8, which is very, very strong. A couple Mews, 1 Regi, even without the help of Gift Energy, which still isn't fixed on BCGO. Cheers for that. And also a Blissey's done very well. So let's have a look at this. Tina looking pretty strong here, adapting to this quad capture energy count, the Temple of Sinnoh tech card to help out against wash energy. Definitely a solid one here. The thicker line of the Tina looks pretty good to me, to be honest. Is adding in the Lost Vacuum as well. I would imagine there's going to be a lot more Lost Vacuum in Tina coming into this weekend. So if you are playing a tanking deck, you've been warned. It's likely that Tina will have their Vacuum. And it's whether or not they can find it in time to remove a Parasol, because I think it's going to be an important card there, and it also keeps you fighting the Stadium War to make sure your Greninja's online, which is obviously important. So yeah, solid enough list here. I'm still not on this 3 grass energy wave. I think it's a little bit risky myself, but there you go. Because I really like to establish multiple gates before I get hit with like Marnies and Roxannes, because if you just have the 3 grass energy, so often, if you just get like a painful Chorus or Confe, you end up having to like wait around till you can Rod, till you can Mirage Gate properly. So I think it just carries too much risk myself, but hey, it's doing well. There's a Mew that came in second. Anything really to write home about Mew? It feels like people are sort of defaulting to a similar list here, but there is a Parasol coming into this 60, and I guess Mew can sort of make them have it with the Roxanne plays that it has available. So I guess that's something. Outside of that, nothing too spicy, still sticking with the Lost Cities. But yeah, seems pretty reasonable overall. Yeah, looks pretty good. Then we have a Bliss. Bliss is an interesting spot because it can, the mill tanks can wall out Arceus Gudra, of course. You do have an unfavorable Regi though, which is a little bit yikes. You are kind of a dodge and weave deck, in all honesty. Let's see what matchups you actually were able to beat and lost to, because yeah, 4 losses isn't great. Yeah, so losing to 2 of the 3 Tinas they faced is definitely a yikes, because Tina's been the most popular deck in the room for the last couple of tournaments, so it's a big old gamble. Beating a lot of Kieran Palk, thanks to the mill tanks, of course. So you are farming the second most popular deck in the room, at least. And I think this is one of the only things holding me back from thinking about playing Kieran Palk, because there will be Blissey players out there. Also losing to the Regis, like I said, one of the worst matchups, and then beating a few of the Genesects, but losing to one of them. So yeah, I mean, you don't have the energy removal that you used to in Bliss to try and help out against the Mew. It's mostly just trying to path and pray. But yeah, Blissey is that sort of dodge and weave deck in the game right now. It is trying out the Chorus's experiment over like very heavy research, which is kind of a cool adaptation. It seems like this support is just so good to see 5 and keep 3 is just too good of an effect to not play right now in a few decks. So really cool to see that that's becoming like a thing in other decks as well. We have more Giratina, and I imagine there's going to be a lot of the capture energies are definitely back on everyone's radar after the top 4 performance. This one is playing the Guru to help out with some Mirage Gate shenanigans and can help out with some yeah, just easier flower selectings, of course. So that's kind of cool. Is playing the one Rod, one Recycler instead of just double Rod. Playing Drapion in here as well. Playing the Collapse as a stadium card. I think at the moment I mean, if you're respecting Regis, you're playing Collapse probably. This also helps against Lost Box to an extent. But I would think Sinnoh makes a lot of sense for how popular Kieran Palk is. That would just be one of my thoughts. Then we have another Tina doing very well. This is the double Rocks build and the Temple of Sinnoh coming in. I would imagine Temple of Sinnoh is quite popular going into the next tournament. I think it does make a good amount of sense to play it when it's such a popular deck. So the Regis, of course, is nerfed because you don't get to play gift energies. So you basically just play more captures and like lottos and stuff to fill those spaces. Outside of that, it looks like standard Regi stuff. The two Pokestop 2-path splits. I know Drew Kennett played a split of stadiums in Salt Lake, had a slightly different list to the Americans. This one isn't playing the Yell Horn, anything like that. It's just kind of straightforward. Playing the Vacuum, which is kind of interesting, as like that sort of 5th stadium removal, but can also have other upsides here and there. Kind of spicy choice. Can randomly get like jammers and can get like big charms and stuff that can help you out in a pinch. So again, a small bit of help there to get rid of some stadiums, but also if you can spike it at the right time, it can help you out against some other stuff. Reggie's in a weird spot as well because they probably have to start teching for Flying Peak now, and they're going to suffer to random Averys and random Collapsed Index, I think. More Giratina, plenty of this on offer. This is a Thornton-based list with the Ice Cube as well. I think Ice Cube's a weird one because it's still good against Bliss Tank, so some people might still choose to play it, but it's obviously way worse against Regis now that the Yell Horn Sniper Lecky is in the list. So Ice Cube's in a weird spot. Maybe still some merits to it if you're respecting Bliss, but Tina doesn't need to beat Bliss. It already does that, so... we've got another Mew, again with Parasol coming in. Looks like a lot of people are adapting that. Parasol obviously still helpful against like Lost Box as well, so it is good against both Lost Zone builds, I guess, where this is similar to having like a Hyper Potion, but it's more proactive against Tina, which is kind of cool actually, kind of a decent shout. This is heavy on the phones, is playing... Just 3 cram? You gotta play your crams. Come on. Where's the fun in Mew if you're not playing quad cram? And no shoes either. I think some of the best IRL lists have all been playing shoes over phones, or at least a higher side of shoes. But let's have a look at the metagame. Because like I said, Reggie's down at 2.6% is really just because you can't play this deck online to its fullest capacity, its fullest extent. I would imagine it will... not necessarily have like a massive uptick. I still think it will be less than like 10% of the field going into Lille, but there'll be people given encouragement by the showing in the US. But I also think a lot of other decks will choose to have extra tech cards. Like there could be some Flying Peas snuck into Arc Tina. There could just be Arc Flying Peas because it got 2nd place. There's going to be Arc Gudras, which is also really bad for Regis, as we saw during the stream. So there's a lot of things that make me worry about playing Regis. So I still think it's going to be this sort of bottom 5 of decks rather than top 5 of decks, at least in popularity. But yeah, Lost Zone stuff is super popular right now. I can easily see a lot of Giratina this weekend. I don't think that's really changing. I still expect Kieran Palkia and Palkia Intelli. Like, Palkia Intelli is still so underplayed for how strong of a deck it is. It still has one of the higher win rates boasted in almost every tournament, still has top 8s in almost every tournament, and it's just like played way less than these other decks. I know people are kind of sus about the Intel engine and whatnot, but man, it's still such a strong deck. I guess the issue with Palkia Intel is that ArcGoo has recently just done well, and that is kind of off-putting unless you play Crab. I think Crabominable could be coming back into some Palkia Intels if you want to fight that ArcGoo matchup and possibly even like Blissey matchup and stuff like that. So yeah, maybe it's Crab time in Palkia Intel, or people try that 1-1 Kieran thing that was in one of the successful Palkia Intels. Yeah, I'm getting lost in my own thought here, but it's because I'm sort of speaking my thoughts aloud because I'm trying to figure out my own Lille deck. Let's go on to the second late night, and let's look at the metagame first. So Lost Zone Tina was still the most popular. Then Mew picked up a lot of pace this time around. Then some Lost Zone Box and Arc Gudra. Quite high up here. Regi's a little bit more popular this time, but still in that sort of lower bracket. Look how little play Palkia Intelli is getting. Where's its respect? Where's the respect out here? We've got some Zoroark seeing a lot of play. Yeah, Bliss is a weird one because Bliss has really good and really bad matchups, so I can see it being a risky play. Arc Tina is also starting to get up amongst that top 10 in popularity at the very least. But let's have a look at the standings. It was actually 2 Lost Box in finals. I know Szymanski has been playing this in person and in a lot of online tournaments, so it's definitely a deck that he gels with nicely and has been slowly tweaking it along the way. I know he's pretty convinced that his 60 is very strong, has the Drapion to really just power through Mew. You've got the Capes, which are very strong against Tina and the Mirror. Obviously, some mirrors will be playing like triple vacuum in his own list. He's only playing 2 copies, but he's still forcing things out of them. Has the Pokestops as well as Palpad. Doesn't actually have any Pokemon recovery outside of Clara, right? So things can go awry. I guess you have Gears as well. Yeah, I mean, you have the Palpad to cover the Pokestop going haywire, I guess, in general. And just a really, really heavy item count, as you can see. I'm surprised we're not seeing double air balloon. It's just such a great way to be plussing and to protect yourself against Marnie. I'm still sus that there's no Guru in the list as well. Guru's just... The more I play this deck, the more I like Guru. And all the memes on Twitter is just you having a horrible flower selectings and you just cry and get angry. So just play Guru and stop rolling that dice every single turn. You know what I mean? Stop playing with fire. Also, Szymanski's playing like quick balls rather than fog crystals. It gives you more flexibility to get the Drapion and Zard, so you can see what they're going for here. I guess in theory. There are times when a proactive Radiant Zard is a really bad play, because there are Lost Cities sneaking into Kyurem as well now, not just Mew playing Lost City. So you can proactively Zard a lot less in the game, a lot less comfortably, I think. So I guess your game plan has changed anyway against Mew just because you have both of these things, so you can almost use Zard as the decoy and then just go Drapioning them. Obviously this is open deck list, so it's a little bit different, but I'm thinking in closed deck list scenarios. Then we have a second Lost Box in second place. This one also getting a little bit spicy, more adaptations from the list that we've seen from Tord. It's just playing the 3 paths, weaving in a Basin to give you a turn earlier Charizard, which I think is actually pretty cool. I have been trying out Raihan in the deck, and I actually really like Raihan for some extra tutoring. So just something I'm thinking about here. Both the lists that have been doing well, though, are playing multiple Pokegear, starting to become like a welder deck where you just bung the gears in because you need Colress to get going, and I guess that makes a good amount of sense. It's also just a great card to get Marnied or Roxanne into to still have plays, and it's not bad fodder at any point. Again, trying to make those flower selects that little bit easier is nice, so having redundancy in your deck is always like a nice thing to have. Even though this one's not playing Pokestop, it still plays Palpad, which is really interesting. It gives you, again, a maybe easier choice of getting rid of a Colress or getting rid of a Clara to a Comfey or to a Colress, and then you know you can pad them back as well, so giving yourself sort of some training wheels is not really a bad thing in these Lost Zone decks. It seems like kind of sad to do it, but it makes a lot of sense because you want to give yourself an easier time of Colress and Comfey throughout the entire game. So yeah, this one obviously less mirror attacked by not playing the big old Capes, but still playing Zard and Drapion. So it looks like everyone's on high alert for dealing with Mew, and it definitely made sense in the meta that we saw in this tournament because it was like the second most popular deck or something. Yeah, second most popular deck. Great value playing that Drapion. We've got some Bliss. Again at third. So both times it got third. And is this the same 60? Looks like the same 60 that we've just seen. Might even be the same play, you never know. We've got Mew that did make a top 4. And this again is playing Parasol, Double Lost City, pretty much everything we've seen before. This time it's heavier weighting towards Cram. Looks like online a lot of people are preferring phones to shoes, even though IRL, the successful lists have been playing shoes. This is playing double switch cart as well. So really respecting that Lost Box with Parasol and double switch cart. Kind of interesting. We have Kyurem, Palk doing pretty well as well. This is just the 1/1 Palkia, again playing Drapion. Lots of Drapions out at the moment. It's not necessarily the worst matchup for Kirim anyway, but I guess you are just securing it by playing the card. We're quite low on the energy count, aren't we? Triple Core, I guess, is the thing that balances this out. Has weaved in the Empoleon, it gives you an answer against some Miltanks, and it is actually quite good at slowing down Tinas now that they're down to like 2 ropes. People are getting greedy enough that it's good enough, and we're seeing, you know, Lost Box going back to Pokestop and Magma Basin and things like that, and when that starts happening, Empoleon's a good card again. I think we're getting to that point. It could be this weekend actually, where we get to that point where Empoleon actually does things again, and then we're like, damn it, we've got to put those we've got to put like the ropes and the paths back into our decks. Thanks, Empoleon. Come again another day, sort of thing. I think this could be a good tournament for Empoleon. That's just my knee-jerk reaction. We have a Palkia Intelli doing pretty well. What do we have here that's that spicy? We have a Rod, which isn't always seen. Have Leon as well, which is a little bit spicy. Not playing any defensive tools, just the one belt. All on 60 hit point Sobbles as well. Kind of interesting stuff. More Palkia Intelli. Looks like Palkia Intelli was just... Man, it's just such a ruthless deck, isn't it? It's beating everything. We got Ice Cube, we got Drapion in this one as well. Here's a defensive Big Charm. I do like the Big Charm going into these lists. Good for Tina, good for Regi's as well, which is, I think, more important on paper at least, going into this weekend. So, kind of cool there. Haven't seen any Crabs, though. I thought Crab was going to be sneaking into these lists like it did at Worlds for the tanking decks, you know. And then this last list again, the 1/1 Tool Split, which I am a fan of, does have quick shooting. Pretty reasonable all around there. So good stuff. Lots of Palkia Intelli. Again, 3 of them in top 8 for it being the 6th most played deck. That's insane. Its overall win rate wasn't that high, but players who are good with the deck can really pole vault their chances of doing well with the deck. So, yeah, seems very strong overall. So, that brings me to the overall metagame for Trainer Hill. And again, so my initial thoughts based on Salt Lake, this is at least where my head's at. I'd imagine there's going to be a good amount of Arc Goo. Still probably like the 5th most played deck, something like that, but people will be taking Hale's list and just making a few adaptations, probably adding in a Miltank answer. If I was trying to be safe, I probably would myself. I think there'll be a good amount of Tina, still probably the most popular deck in my book. I think it's going to go Tina, both Melanie decks, and then Lost Box and Mew and Arc Goo kind of similar, and then like another jump down to Regi, Zorro, Arceus decks. That's kind of where my head's at in terms of popularity. So let's have a look at what's still most important to beat. So let's start looking at Giratina Lost Box. So I think it's the most popular deck, so it's going to be important to not lose to that deck. So Tina is really good against Arc Flying P. It's got a surprisingly low Arc Gudra matchup. I thought it would be easier for Lost Zone Box, but I think we'll only just start seeing vacuums coming into lists, so I can imagine that matchup gets worse for Gudra. And I think, again, Tina is likely to be playing like 3rd Rope now as well, because it's just like a good card in general, but also helps Arc Goo. So some of your weaker matchups... some of your strongest matchups are Blissey as well. So it's a hard tournament for Blissey whenever Tina's expected to be most popular. Other than that, I mean, Tina's like close into everything. You can see why it's going to be one of the most popular decks, right? It doesn't really lose to much. So it seems reasonable. And the Regi percentage probably gets worse, honestly. Regi does target Lost Zone Tina quite hard, because its win rate is already at 43%, and that's considering that like Roxanne's and Marnie's can work against Regi in tournaments. In online tournaments, but not in paper. Let's have a look at Regi next, because, like I said, Regi's in that weird spot where we saw the 2 finalist decks, Arc Goo and Arc Flying P. They are horrible matchups, and I don't think Gift Energy changes that fact here. It's got surprisingly low Arc Tina. Again, I think Arctina is one of these like heavy Marnie decks, and I think that's one of the bigger problems for it. So I think that win rate goes way up with Gift Energy. Otherwise, it's it farms a lot of decks, and again, all of these rates are probably improving based on you not being able to be hand disrupted. So yeah, it's actually still pretty good. The only thing I would say is like, what can realistically tech against you that makes life harder? Like, Arc Goo and Arc Flying P are really hard matchups already. Arctina can start playing Collapsed, which I think is scary. Tina can start playing Collapsed, which is scary, I guess. And already plays Temple, and Temple blocks Gift Energy anyway. Kieran Palkia can play Collapsed. Again, these Arc decks can play more Averys as well. Blissey can play Quad Avery. Lost Zone Box can start playing Articuno if it really wants to beat Regi's and just get the first attack and never lose a race, which is kind of funny. Mew already has like Avery and Roxanne and Lost Cities, so I think that's, it's just trying to keep you honest. Palkia Intelli can play Big Charm or Tool Jammer, and yeah, so I think it's weird. It still looks like an appealing matchup spread to me because I'm not too afraid of like Arc Flying P being super popular, but I am scared that these So I almost think as if like these percentages that we're seeing right now, as much as Gift Energy like adds percentages, I think the potential for people to tech against Regi takes away your percentages anyway. So this is more or less what I expect the win rate to be honest, because that's how things are teching. Palkia Intelli looking just bad against the tanky stuff, right? It's really bad into Blissey and Goodra. Pretty bad into Flying Peak and pretty bad into Arctina. I'm surprised at how bad the Arctina matchup is. I guess they can keep a low bench, but I thought that would be better for Palkia Intelli, to be honest. I mean, 47% is basically coin flip at that point, but that's not too bad. Mew, we saw a lot of Drapion in the last few lists. If Lost Box is playing Drapion, if Tina's playing Drapion, and a handful of Kieran are playing Drapion, that's a lot of the top 5 decks potentially playing Drapion, which is scary. I do think one good thing going for you is that you're like okay into Bliss, which is meant to be like a target for Arc Goo. And your Arc Goo, your Arc Goo matchup's not even that strong. I think the Radiant Guardian puts such a shift in against Mew that it is a resource wolf that you can lose as Mew against Arc Goodra. I thought the matchup was way better for Mew, honestly, when I started talking, and then I looked at the number and thought, man, you're actually unfavored into the Goo. That's pretty crazy. Lost Zone Box is interesting. It's just spiked a couple of online tournaments, even though its data looks pretty poor. Like I said, you can improve your Regis by playing Articunos, or you can even play like double Zig, just to have those extra pings of damage in the opening stages. Then when you get to Sableye, you get to target certain stuff like the 120 hit point Aleki, that sort of thing. But that's quite low. You're sub 50 into basically everything. Farming Zoroark isn't really something I care about too much. Surprisingly unfavored into Tina as well. I thought that would be way better. And you get farmed by Arc Goo, which is a real shame. I would imagine we're going to start seeing some more aggressive Lost Zone boxes, playing more Basins that we saw. Maybe even like Raihan coming into lists, or like a Mirage Gate Zard build, that sort of thing, where you just get the Zard online earlier and try and rinse and repeat it more quickly. Because at the moment, the 120 and 110 from Cram is getting beaten out of the format, and that is a genuine worry for me. Kieran Palk has to worry about Palkia Intelli, which is not the worst thing because it's underplayed right now for how good of a deck it is. Also really bad into Blissey, but otherwise you're a really good deck. Otherwise you really are a strong deck, and you can really improve your... Where's Lost Zone Box? So Lost Zone Box and Tina are already slightly favoured, but if you actually put Empoleons back in, I say Empoleons with an S, you can be beating Bliss and beating the two Lost Zone decks. So I low-key think Empoleon back ? Is interesting. It hurts the amount of like phones and stuff you get to play, which does suck, but it can beat some popular matchups. These two Lost Zone decks were literally the two most popular decks in both of the late nights. Could be value, really could be. Hisu and Zorak, I basically think you should be playing Mew instead. I actually put a few games into this week, thinking it was like low-key slept on, but the amount of 30s and 40s speak for themselves, really. If you want to respect Regis, if you want to respect Bliss, it waters down your deck to the point where you are just going to whiff more times than you hit into these other consistent speedy decks. What else is there to be said, really? Bliss is dodge and weave. You can target the deck that won the previous week, which is something, but you are weak into Regis, which did make 4 of the top 8. Arc Goose, yeah, like I said, the meta's not bad for Arc Goose still. I'm only really worried that like Lost Zone Box and even Tina could add in a mill tank, and then you're going to have a hard time as soon as you don't prepare for it. Realistically, a lot of decks could just randomly throw in a mill tank, and it's really bad for you, to be honest with you. What else am I afraid of? Just more horns, more ropes coming into lists. That's really it. Possibly even like more path arc decks, and just getting pathed early challenges you to just hit things. Hit your stadium, otherwise you're kind of scuppered. So yeah, and I would also expect, again, Tina and Kieran Palk to be some of the more popular decks, and they're not that good for you, and I think Tina gets worse if there's going to be answers to Parasol. Arc Tina still hanging on in there. This is still, I think it's my top choice right now. I think I'm between Mew and Arc Tina, just being perfectly honest with you guys. I'm still seeing this Arc matchup spread and being like, wow, this is so good for what I want to face. Maybe I'm getting baited by being good against other Arc decks, because it doesn't matter that much, but having a good time against Blissey, I'm low-key happy about, because that's the easy answer to Goo, so I think people might be jumping on it. Having like a kind of mid Kieran Palk is kind of the biggest fear factor for me, but you're favored into regular Tina, which is cool. I think it's kind of just tied in with Marnie Path them. And Marnie Path works against basically everything. The only thing that scares me is I'm getting Copium that the Regi matchup is strong, and it's probably really weak if I actually can't brick them because Gift Energy works. So maybe that's just a risk I need to weigh up. So yeah, overall I've gone through merits and other things like that. Merits and worries for basically every deck, because I'm going to be honest, I've considered Lost Zone Box, I've considered playing Kieran Palk, I've considered Mew, I've considered Zorak for like an hour, I considered Arceus and Arc Flying P decks in the space of like a week, because I was pretty happy with the deck until I saw the meta and I was like, this just changes everything I wanted to play. So yeah, we're going to be sighing and hoping for the best this weekend in Lille. Let me know what you think the best placed deck in the room is. Let me know what's going to be filling out that top 8. Are we going to see 4 of one deck again in the top 8? That would be insane to see. I'd like to hear your thoughts down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in another video tomorrow. Cheers.